Hello, me making a wrap-up video? I know, who is she? Technically, I read 9 books, but I'm gonna count the 10th one because I finished it like March 2, and it's just easier for me to keep track of my stats that way. So let's say I read 10 books in February. Out of the 10 books, I gave 2 2 stars, 3 3 stars, 4 4 stars, and 1 5 star. The total average was 3.75. The total page count I got was 2,910. So it's whatever. Compared to January, I only read 2 books, and now I read 10. So that's a pretty big jump. So it's alright. So the first book I read in February was Isla and the Happily After. Isla and the Happily After by Stephanie Perkins. I gave this 2.25 out of 5 stars. So Isla and the Happily Ever After is part of the whole Anna and the French Kiss companion trilogy. So for Isla and the Happily Ever After, it's about these 2 kids in this school in France, and there's mutual pining. Early on in the book, they get together, so I think that was pretty interesting. A lot of the romance YA that I read, there's a lot of build up to the relationship, a lot of the pining, but for here, the relationship is established early on. The thing about the relationship between these 2 is that it felt super over dramatic. I guess it's also because they're only in high school, so it's very us against the world, but it felt super over dramatic. They went long distance and it felt like it was the end of the world for them, and I was just grow up. But I did appreciate the sex positivity in this book. I think that's important for younger readers to expose themselves to. It's very like, oh, I want you and all that, but the book also talks about how sex is no big deal, like it's pretty normal, and I think that's a good thing. That's I don't know, sex positivity is always good. And then the next book I read, I guess I didn't have a good start to the month, but the next book I read was 29 Dates by Melissa de la Cruz. This was my first book for the contemporaryathon. So this book is about Ji-sun. She's this Korean American, and her parents set her up on these dates for prospective marriage candidates. That's why it's called 29 Dates, because it's a bunch of dates. So Ji-sun is like struggling to figure out what she wants to do after high school while having to deal with all these dates. What really drew me to this was the whole photography thing, because Ji-sun is I guess she's a hobbyist, maybe a possible aspiring photographer. I kind of wish that the photography portion played a bigger role, but that was okay. I think my biggest gripe with this book was the writing style. It felt very simple, very plain, borderline boring. The good thing about that is the writing style is very straight to the point, so it's very easy to consume, but it felt kind of bland. The ending also felt kind of abrupt. I wish we could have seen a sort of resolution between Ji-sun and her parents, because there was a lot of conflict about what Ji-sun wants to do with her life and if she wants to really do this arranged marriage thing. As for the romance, I didn't really feel much of a connection to it. Isla and the Happily Ever After felt very juvenile, but there were some scenes that were super like, oh, my heart, yes, fluff. With 29 Dates, I didn't really feel much of that. The relationship establishment, like when it finally happened, it felt kind of convenient and abrupt. Like the whole relationship with Dave, when I thought back to it, like where does it even mention that Dave started developing feelings for Ji-sun? When did this happen? I feel like it should have been developed more. The beginning also felt kind of slow, and I feel like things only picked up like after 100 pages or so. I think the strength of this book is its diversity. There's a lot of representation, like the Korean and Filipino. I really liked seeing that, like the Filipino aspect of the book. But yeah, it's whatever. I gave it 2 stars. I haven't been holding up the books. I don't know how to do wrap-up videos. So next I read Monstress by Marjorie Liu with art by Sana Takeda. I read this in preparation for Marjorie Liu's book signing. So I read volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. This follows the protagonist Micah as she I think it's Micah, as she fights with this monster that lives inside of her. She's trying to It's hard to explain. It's hard to explain. I don't even... There's like a war between humans and these half-human, half-animal creatures called the Arcanics, and Micah is one of them. What I really liked about this was the art, because it's super nice. Oh, like the art really carries over with the entirety of the graphic novel. And all your furry dreams will come true with this. I like a lot of the female representation in this. It's great. It's great. Overall, I really like this series, and I'm excited for what else we get to see, especially with how Volume 3 ended. Volume 1 was pretty info dumpy. I kind of got lost a bit while reading, but it gets better. It's like reading a fantasy novel, but in graphic novel form. It's dark, it's kind of gruesome, but also the aesthetic is very steampunk. Super cool. So I gave Volume 1 4 stars. I gave Volume 2 4.75 stars. And then I gave Volume 3, I gave it 5 stars. It was the only 5 stars this month. Kippa is my favorite. She's my daughter. Please read this. But also, it's not for everyone. But if you like fantasy and graphic novels and really beautiful art, I think it's worth a shot. And then the next book I read, this was also for contemporaryathon. It's Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. I'm super late to this. Not gonna lie, I got this because of the booktube hype, and then it took me years to read it. But I'm so glad I did. Like, why did it take me so long to read this? It was really good. So it's about these two boys named Ari and Dante. They're kind of struggling with their identities in society. This book, I think it's such an important read because it really explores sexual identity and your ethnicity, your cultural identity, and how it's hard to sometimes accept who you are amidst society's standards, I guess. I really love the development of the friendship between Ari and Dante, and it's just all about Ari and Dante's growth separately and together, and how they come into themselves, not just as friends, but like as individuals. And I love Ari's relationship with Dante. I love Dante's relationship with his parents, and there's so many feels. Was it worth the hype? For me, it was, but also I think some people it didn't really jive with them, but that's okay. Oh yeah, and I mentioned this in my blog, but I also like the writing style of this. It's very serene, but also very quiet, but not boring. I give this 4.75 out of 5 stars. I read Let's Talk About Love by Claire Kahn. This is about an asexual girl named Alice. She just got out of a relationship because of her sexual preference, and then she meets this guy, and she's like, oh, you cute, you hot, but like, do I want a relationship with you because I just got out of one? That's pretty much the premise, but like in my shitty version. I didn't think I'd love this book, but I did. Not only do we get a protagonist who's a person of color, Alice is, aside from being ace, she's also biromantic. So I think that was super interesting. I can't really talk about the representation for asexuals for this book because I'm not ace myself, but I think it was an important read for me to at least learn more about this portion of the LGBT community. Personally, I've always had a hard time understanding how asexuality works. It took me so long, and I'm still struggling actually. I'm still struggling to understand the concept of a romantic relationship without any of the sexual nature of it. So this book was really, I don't know, it was really important that I got to read it. I liked Alice's growth and her acceptance of her flaws and how she was working towards bettering herself, because this is also another book about, oh no, what do I do with my life, and trying to figure out what you want to do. That's pretty relatable for a lot of us. I didn't really like Feeny. I mentioned this in my makeup and books tag. I didn't really like Feeny because she felt kind of manipulative and selfish despite being a best friend. Like, is that really a best friend? I mean, she admitted that she's a person who is hard to be friends with, but I mean, I love the diversity in this book because Alice is black and she's biromantic and asexual, and then the love interest is Japanese. There's also another Filipino character, so I was like, oh hey, supplies! I also liked how this book explored not just sexuality, but sexualizing races. Like, oh, I have a black fetish. Oh, I love Asian girls. Like, making someone's race your type. Like, that's kind of of creepy. So I like that this book also explored that. With the writing style, okay, it was okay, but there was an excessive use of parentheses. Like, girl, you do not need that many parentheses. You just don't need that many. I also had an issue with the pacing of Alice and Takumi's relationship. It felt kind of jumpy. Like, there was one chapter that was suddenly set a week later and then their relationship was already established. Like, I wish we could have seen the in-between of the establishing of that relationship. But overall, I learned a lot from this book. I think that's why, you know, reading diverse books is really important because it really educates us on walks of life that we don't experience. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This follows our protagonist named Marin. I'll say Marin. She's struggling with the death of someone in her life and how this grief really overwhelms her and consumes her and really affects her mental health. The book jumps from the past to the present and how this death came to be and how it ultimately affected Marin. I really like the development of the story that way, like learning bits and pieces as we go along. Not only does this explore mental health and grief, it also touches on the relationships you have with people and how the loss of one person in your life can affect all the other relationships that you have. I really like Nina LaCour's writing. The only other book of hers that I read was Everything Leads to You, and there's just something about Nina LaCour's writing that's really pretty and darling and romantic. It really adds to the story. But I also wish we got more from this book. I went into this thinking that it would really like wreck me, but it kind of lacked this emotional punch. So I gave it 3.75 out of 5 stars. Then the last book that I read for Contemporaryathon is Geekerella by Ashley Poston. So this is about a big fangirl of this fictional show. Like, it's a Star Trek-esque show. There's like this contest, like a cosplay contest. The prize is to meet the actor who is playing the prince in the adaptation of this Star Trek show thing, like a movie adaptation of this fictional Star Trek show. This book is also a Cinderella retelling, which I don't know why I forgot that it was, but it is. It's a Cinderella retelling. With the premise and the title, you already know what to expect. So I really enjoyed the fandom aspect of this book. As someone who is a fangirl of several fandoms, I felt seen, sort of. But I feel like fans of Star Trek would enjoy this more just because I feel like it alluded to a lot of, I don't know, I don't know anything about Star Trek, but I feel like it alluded to a lot of Star Trek-y things. Since this was a Cinderella retelling, the framework of the story was almost predictable. I also don't know how realistic the romance is in this book because it's a celebrity meets everyday girl and the relationship actually works out later on, and I'm like, how real does this work out? There's a lot of suspension of disbelief here, not just with the romance. There's a part here where a bunch of cosplayers give pieces of their costumes to the protagonist, Elle, so that she can build her costume and improve on it. And I feel like real cosplayers would not do that. Like, even if this chick is the daughter of the dude who started this convention to begin with. My friends are cosplayers, and I feel like despite the importance of who Elle is in the community, I feel like real cosplayers would not give pieces of their hard work and craft to someone else. Especially when a cosplay competition is at play. Like, really? Would you really do that? Parts of this book felt pretty cheesy. Not the dialogue, like, I don't know, there was just something that felt kind of cheesy about it, but you know, it was a fun read, and there was a part in the acknowledgements that I really loved. Never let anyone tell you that what you love is inconsequential or useless or a waste of time. I think that's super important. Like, regardless of what you love, if you love it, it's important. It doesn't mean that just because it's an anime or it's a show or it's a book, if you're a fan of it, if it makes you happy, then that's really all that matters. So I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. The last book I read is this one, Truthwitch by Susan Dennard. I feel like I was too stupid for this because there's a lot of politics in this, and I don't know, you know, it took me the rest of the month to finish this. It's like 300, no, not 300, like maybe 400 plus pages, but it took me so long to finish it. Like, I couldn't connect to the characters, I wasn't invested in the story, and then I had a hard time following the book. Not just because it was political, but I felt like there was a lack of establishing the foundation of the lore. I couldn't understand parts of the lore and the magic system. I wish the magic system was developed more. The magic system is what kept me going. I don't know, there were just some things that were mentioned here that I didn't really understand. Like, it was just thrown to your face without any backstory. Like, who's the puppeteer? And with Aidwan, why was he so hellbent on killing Isildt and Safi? And what was his motive? Like, I was just following the story and like, okay, this blood witch wants to kill these two girls, but why? I don't know, maybe I missed it. Maybe I really am too stupid for this. I think my favorite character was Merrick though. I really loved his devotion to his nation, and I appreciated how Safi grew. She grew up. There was character growth. She went from being selfish and brash to finally putting other people before herself. I also love the relationship between Safi and Isildt. I love the whole third sister, third brother thing as well. We need more female friendships like this. It was okay. It was good. I gave it 3.5 out of 5 stars. I don't know why I thought the whole The Witchland saga was I thought all the books were just companion novels. But it's actually a continuation of one book to the next. It just follows different perspectives. I'm gonna continue on with the series. The second book actually follows, I think, Merrick. So that's exciting. That's promising. That's my February wrap-up. I am going to be participating in 2 readathons this month. Witchathon and Zodiacathon. Please tell me what you read in the month of February. I have a pretty ambitious March TBR. So at least we have 31 days back at the month. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Oh my god, I'm doing the booktube thing where you hold up your stack of books. Okay. Thank you. Bye.